Hey everyone, it's Anthony Bandiero, an attorney for Blue to Gold Law Enforcement Training, bringing you into the Roadside Chat. Let me just answer some of your questions. This officer is in Texas. It involves this fact pattern. They get called to a person's house, and she says, look, I got a text message from my best friend last night, okay? I got it at 2300 hours. Now, at this point, it's like 9 something in the morning. So she says, look, the text message was from my friend, and she says, don't answer your phone if my husband calls you. He's having a mental crisis. He's having a bad day. He's having a bad night. And she knows that the husband suffers from PTSD from the military. All right. So she also makes this comment that, if you don't hear from me, you know who did it. Okay. So, not to be taken lightly. So I guess the friend was like sleeping or something, right? Kind of woke up and saw the text messages. And so she's all right, can you go please check on her? So the cops go over to the house. They get there around 10:30 in the morning. The husband and the wife's car is in the driveway. They knock on the door, loud, persistent knocking, and nobody answers the door. They have been married for 20 years. They're in their 60s. The husband has a domestic violence arrest in 2020. Not necessarily a conviction, but an arrest. They also know that there's firearms inside the house. There's nothing visible through any of the partially open windows. No issues with them being hearing or mobility impaired. The question is, can we go in? All right, before I can answer your question, I have to give you some background. First of all, this doctrine that would allow us to go in there without a search warrant is called the emergency aid exception. Emergency aid doctrine is the same thing. The emergency aid exception allows officers to make a warrantless entry into a home if they have objective facts to believe that an emergency exists. Emergency is exigency. What is exigency? Well, a very common definition is given in United States versus McConney. It is a case from the Ninth Circuit, 1984. It says, we define exigent circumstances as those circumstances that would cause a reasonable person to believe that entry or other relevant prompt action was necessary to prevent physical harm to the officers or other persons, the destruction of relevant evidence, the escape of the suspect, or some other consequence improperly frustrating legitimate law enforcement efforts. That's a great definition because that's kind of encapsulates all of the exigent circumstances. Now, do we have objective reasons to believe that an emergency exists right now? In other words, if we do not act, something bad happens, right? Escape, destruction of evidence, injury, and so forth. And these are always, most of the time, right, are going to be judgment calls. You are the officer. You are going to have to make a judgment about whether or not you can make a forced entry into that house. I will tell you what I would do. I would not go in. Because for me to go in, I want to know where is the emergency? Where is the here and now issues? At the end of the day, they're not, answering the door after long, persistent knocking, but I also know that a text message was sent late last night. She wasn't saying I'm going to bed, right? So, it can be inferred that they were still up handling, his mental issues. They have been married for a very long time. He's in his 60s. He has not been in the military for a long time. So I'm sure he's been suffering with this for many a year. There was no screaming from the house. There was no evidence of violence. They looked in the windows. They didn't see anything. And there's just no reason to believe that we cannot, get a warrant, or we should, there's no reason to believe that we should avoid getting a warrant, right? We should just go right in. But Anthony, it's possible this, it's possible that, it's possible she's dead or, she's dying in there. I get that. But when it comes to freedom, when it comes to the Fourth Amendment, it has consequences, right? Freedom has consequences. And so this is one of those consequences. Where is the objective reason to believe that there's a here and now issue? Also, I got to tell you, my spidey sense here tells me that they're sleeping, right? I mean, they had a long night, exhaustive night, emotional and so forth. But they get it. Yeah, he's been arrested for family violence 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But he wasn't convicted. Doesn't say anything about anything more than that. It's years ago. The fact that guns are in the house, well, this is Texas. Everybody has a gun in the house, and so forth. So I'm not persuaded that there's just an emergency. I would get a warrant if that's the route I want to go. I'm not saying I wouldn't get a warrant. I mean, maybe I would get a warrant. In fact, actually, no, let me just say, no, I would not get a warrant. Okay. I would just come back at noon. If they're not answering the door by noon, a lot of reasonable people would be getting up by now. And after, sleeping off the rough night, then I think that's another objective reason to believe that there's something bad going on. But even then, I would still get a warrant because I don't have any reason to believe that we have a here and now emergency. We have no 911 hang-up. We have no screaming. We have no holes in the wall. We have no blood trail, right? As far as her comment goes, if anything happens to me, you know who did it. Well, we don't know if anything did happen to her. So the answer is I would not go in, and that's what I would do. I would get a warrant. All right. I hope you appreciate where I'm coming from. If you have a different opinion, no problem. We're still friends. Tell me why in the comments below. Also, you got to attend our webinars. We are doing the Search and Seizure Show where I answer questions live on, every week during our webinars. So even if you don't have a question, you just want to hear what people have to say, like things like this and so forth, you got to get on the webinar. Go to bluetogold.com and click on free webinars, free training and so forth. All right. You'll see a link of that below in the description. And until next time, my friends, stay safe and make good case law.